are people just making products and throwing them out there and putting like, four cops on it and not actually addressing what the cops on the street? I was a beat cop. I was on patrol every day of my career. And I was like, I don't understand this. But one of the questions I get most from people is, how did I come up with the products that comprise 221B Tactical today, especially the Max Dry Vest, which was my first product invention. And then I got into gloves and other things. But the company started with the Max Dry Vest. And I came up with it because I was sick and tired of sweating, actually soaking in my sweat during my shift while I was working as a police officer. Now, I was in medical school before I became a police officer. So this was all new to me. I was not someone who was in the military and then transitioned to law enforcement. I remember the first time I got my body armor issued to me, I put it on. And it was so stiff and it was so heavy. And I'm thinking to myself, there was a moment where, well, thank God I only have to wear this if something dangerous is happening. I probably got to put this on. Little did I know, this is how little I knew about police work. I didn't know that I had to wear this the entire shift. And I started looking for solutions to figure out, all right, well, there's got to be a way to make this more comfortable. Maybe there's lighter versions of this or more breathable. There was nothing. Everyone I talked to was like, nope, there's nothing. I looked all over the internet. I couldn't find anything. And this was the time when I was starting to learn about tactical gear. And I was like, man, there's so many companies making tactical gear out there. A lot of companies making it for cops. How are there no companies taking care of the one thing that I myself and literally every guy I worked with was complaining about every single day, which was how hot, miserable, and unbearable it was to wear the body armor? No one had a solution. So I realized all these companies out there with all their marketing and all their fancy photos, all their ninjas jumping around with nods and rifles, no one was actually taking care of a simple problem that police, like actual police officers, why was no one addressing it? So that's when I decided I was going to sit down and focus on solving this problem. The thing that was bothering me most was not the sweating. You need to sweat. It's your body's way of thermoregulating. I get that. However, I knew that you didn't have to sit there and soak in your own sweat. And I knew that there was a solution to that somewhere out there. And I started working and I ultimately found the material that was going to be the basis for the Max Dry Vest. However, the problem I was going to solve is still prevalent today. I meet cops every day. I see them wearing their body armor. I'm like, hey, what's going on? You have your body armor. Is it hot? And they're like, yeah, it's hot. It's miserable. Sometimes I talk to an officer and they're like, yeah, I've seen it. I read the reviews. It looks great. I don't have the money. I don't have the funds. And I'll say to them, if money was no object, would you have one? They say, absolutely, I would have one. Most of the time when I run into them out on the street, everyone knows this. When they run into me, they end up getting a free Max Dry Vest. They absolutely love it. And it's just my way of giving back. I see an officer and I see they don't have one. I'll go right up to them. I'll ask them the same questions. If anyone even alludes to the fact that it's a financial situation, then I make sure they get one. To me, this is what 221B is about. We're solving problems for the frontline officers, the frontline protectors, our front line of defense. One of our other products that I developed are hero gloves. They are gloves with a specialized material that's flexible, that gives you dexterity. However, the material is needle proof, it's puncture proof. And I realized I was using gloves on the job that weren't needle resistant. And I said to myself, how is no company, all these companies making law enforcement tactical gear, how is no one making gloves that actually have dexterity? You could actually wear and feel stuff during a search and it's going to protect your hands. How is no one making that? Are people just making products and throwing them out there and putting like, four cops on it and not actually addressing what the cops on the street? I was a beat cop. I was on patrol every day of my career. And I was like, I don't understand this. So I went to the drawing board and I started to design those gloves. And they quickly became one of our best selling gloves. No shit they did, because they were addressing a serious problem. Same with the Max Dry Vest. Every cop out there is suffering from soaking in their own sweat and being hot and miserable in their body armor. And I addressed that. I didn't want to have a tactical gear brand that was just making another pair of whatever that wasn't helping anyone. And you're looking at some of these brands, they have big names, they got famous people in their ads climbing over walls and doing all this crazy shit, and their gear is falling apart within a few months. And I'm like, wait a second. How are you selling gear like that to people who aren't even making a lot of money? We can't afford to buy gear every couple of months because the shit's falling apart and breaking down. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I don't care what we need to do. I will personally test all the gear to make sure it lasts. Just the other day, got an email forwarded to me. Girl on our team said, hey, this customer had this pair of gloves and says he absolutely loves them, but on the seam on one of the gloves, it started to come off and he sent a photo. However, this guy wrote in a really thoughtful email saying, I love these gloves, took the time to design a pair of gloves that actually take care of my concerns. And I was so upset when this thing happened on the seam. I said, send him a brand new pair of gloves and send him a different extra pair of gloves too. He got a brand new pair of his gloves, same gloves that he had gotten. And I sent him an extra pair of a different model of gloves. He wrote back to the team. He was just like so happy. And that was just a small gesture from us for his loyalty. And he didn't go online and bash us and say, oh, your gloves fell apart. That's the brand we are. We are taking care of people from a physiological standpoint, meaning that with their body, but also we're taking care of them on the customer service front and the emotional standpoint. So the word spreads over a decade of taking care of police officers and first responders that these guys aren't just selling good gear, and they're not just selling gear that's addressing our real problems, but they're standing behind it and they actually mean what they say. They actually give a shit. They give a shit about making good stuff. Give a shit about the people who are using it and the end users, and they give a shit about the total customer experience. They want the products to last because they know we are busting our butt to make our money. And they notice that, they recognize that. And to me, that is what building a brand is all about. That is what creating products is all about. And when you're taking care of our front line, our first responders, yeah, we make gear for civilians. And the gear that we make for civilians are everyday clothes that sometimes our law enforcement is using off duty, like our hoodies, our jackets, our asset tactical jeans. These are all things, our bags, our backpack, our gym bag now, our caddy. These are all things that people who are using, that are on the job, that they're using while they're off duty. But a lot of them are just, they're not on the job. They're just regular everyday people that see the quality of the gear that we designed and we provide for these first responders. And they're saying, yeah, that's the quality I want. So all of our products have a meaning behind them and there's a story behind them. All of our products are so unique that people always say, I can't find a comparable product on Amazon or somewhere else because this product was designed so specifically. It's hard to find even a knockoff of it. And people know you buy a knockoff and it doesn't work. It falls apart in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And you try to email or call or whatever, forget it. No one's answering the phone. No one's responding to your email. Nothing. And I think that's a really cool thing that people have spread the word, and we're notorious for that, is notoriously good customer service. And I like that. That's the best part about owning 221 Be Tactical, and that's why we exist. And we don't ever want anyone in any capacity, especially those on our front lines, to say, well, there's this problem I have, but people told me that trying to wear body armor without soaking in your sweat all day was impossible. Hence why the tagline came up from the Sherlock Holmes story, eliminate the impossible. I was not willing to accept that it was impossible to have airflow beneath your body armor. That's our brand. That's our story. And for those wondering how it started, why I started it, and what continues to drive us today, that's it. So you can check out our stuff at 221betactical.com. If you want a little bit more on top of our gear, we have our mission ready community. You can head over to school.com/mission ready. It's if you're part of the 221B Tactical family, we welcome you to join that and just we pour into you over there. And we hope you just absorb it and share it with those around you. And part of another part of what 221B is all about. So thanks for watching. We hope to see you over there. Be safe out there if you're one of our protectors. And we'll see you next time.